All right. I've pressed buttons and we are, in fact, live. How fantastic. Oh, I have waited for this all day. This is really the highlight of my day, and it is so nice to be here one more time in your ears. And tonight we got a good one. Tonight we are talking about how to take what's in your head and getting it on the page and all the obstacles, or at least the three big obstacles that generally tend to stand in the way between what you are hoping to do, what you are trying to do, and what you will do later. This is, I'm pretty pleased about this, frankly. It's a good topic. I enjoy it. I like talking about it. I hope that enthusiasm carries forward. Oh, and thank you, new person. Hi. I hope you stick around. Thanks for following. I really, really appreciate it. As always, follows are free, and they help grow this thing and help tell me I'm not making a huge mistake on the daily. So thanks. I really hope you stick around. And I hope you learned something. That would be delightful, wouldn't it? If we all just spent more time learning things and asking more questions. Yeah. All right. So I think really the first place to start, if we're going to dive into this, is what exactly does it mean to get something on the page? Because this phrase, put it on the page, shows up like in a million different places. You'll hear it from agents. You'll hear it from editors. You'll hear it in terrible internet contests. You'll hear it all over the hashtag writing community. You'll hear it in loads of different places. And nobody will define the damn thing. Like, it just doesn't get explained that way. And it really should, because it's really important. Really, the term getting it on the page means to take the idea, whatever it is, and make sure it doesn't only live in your head anymore. That's it. But we use it as shorthand. Oh, right on. Okay. We use it as shorthand. I'm looking at, there's a new bot in here to help like clean things or police things or organize things or wrangle the wrangleables. I don't know. And I'm hoping, yeah, see, I don't know. I still got to play with all these things. It's got, features and stuff, but I'll fiddle with it. Anyway, where was I? Right. Getting it on the page. It generally refers to transforming your idea in some way, but a lot of people take it to mean things like making it into a draft or finishing your draft or turning it into a book, or why isn't the book just birthing out of your head like a Grecian painting? And it doesn't mean that at all. It just means the idea needs to not be in your head alone. It's still going to be there. It's your idea, damn it. But you want to do more with it. You want to develop it. You want to get it in a viable, workable state so that it isn't just this abstract thing you kind of like stare off into space. Oh yeah, okay, I'm getting it on the page. We want it to be active. We want it to be motile. That said, there are sort of like three big categories of problems here. Three things that really stop a writer. Now, I want to make a distinction here. This reminds me. I want to make a distinction. I'm going to use two terms, and I'm going to bounce between them. And I'm going to try and not make them synonymous because they're not entirely. Hello, it's so nice to see you. Thank you for being here. I'm going to use two terms in an effort to draw a distinction for the benefit of this whole conversation. I'm going to use the term writer and author. And I'm going to aim it this way. So a writer writes, and an author is what we're talking about post-publication when we cover the post-publication side of this. And the only reason I'm making a distinction is because for the majority of this conversation, I'm looking at writers. And I'm talking about mostly the yet-to-be-published or working on getting published crowd. And if you've already been published and you're coming into this process, on a second book, third book, whatever, the steps are still going to be the same, but they're going to hit you differently. They're going to be a different sort of flavor of what I'm talking about. Sure, absolutely. Because fundamentally, I'm making a distinction based principally on experience. Because experience is going to shape a lot of your frame of reference for this stuff. Because let's say if you have been published and you're working on a second book, this material is not necessarily as new to you. You've done it before. And your specific experience is going to color the sort of breadth of definition and breadth of concept here, more so than somebody who's not done it yet, where it's sort of a big deal and we want to get from there. So, writer versus author. I'm going to try and not use it disparagingly, although I will tell you right now, some of these things, for some of the people who are here, will hear, and be here later, some of these things might be a bit difficult and press some buttons. I'm not trying to press some buttons, but just a heads up, we're going to talk about some roadblocks and obstacles that people have in and around being creative. This isn't just sort of a technical, hey, this is how you build a thing. We're gonna get into the kind of conceptual side. The thinking, feeling, philosophizing, analyzing, overthinking side tonight. So, and I'm doing it because it's really interesting. It's interesting because you have to know this side in order to talk about the other side. We can't only look at, well, here's how you write a character arc, here's how you fix a plot, without understanding how you got into the problem in the first place. When you're working with an editor, when you're working with a coach, it isn't just somebody coming along like an English teacher in school with a red pen, like marking off, like, oh, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. There are, copy editors that do that sort of thing, but this is beyond just market correct or market wrong. This is market correct or market wrong, and figure out what's going on that got you there in the first place. Why are you making the mistake? How can we make the mistake fewer times in the future? How can we nip it in the bud now? This kind of concept, it's not enough to know the problem. You have to know why you're doing it and what you're going to do about it. This kind of idea is really what I'm trying to do for the next 90 minutes to 2 hours. I want you thinking about, I want you thinking about the scope and scale of being creative. I want you thinking about whether or not these things we're going to talk about, and there's a whole page full, if they apply to you. If they do, how do you feel about it? Does it really annoy you? Does it bug you? Does it, freak you out? Is it an, oh my God, the light bulb's gone off kind of a moment? Is it a, this all sucks, I'm going to burn everything to the ground? Think about your response to this, not because I want you to favor one kind of response over the other, but because I want you seeing if these things connect with you. I want you thinking about this stuff in terms of, oh, this does apply to me. Okay. Because when we talk about this stuff, I'm not just going to, talk about it and go, okay, good luck with that. I'm going to try and give you some solutions. I'm going to try and give you some advice. I'm going to try and give you something to help you not have this problem so much anymore. Now, granted, I am by no means perfect at this. I'm quite subject to all of the things we're talking about tonight. And for good or for ill, I mean, none of us are perfect, absolutely. But in these situations, it's important to do two things. One, recognize that you're doing it. Two, really make a concerted effort, if you want, to do it less. That's my goal. That's the plan. Here we go. Now, this by no means is a complete list. Because if we were to have a complete list, I'd be talking for days, probably. There's a ton of stuff and a ton of concepts and a ton of ideas as to how we get or why we don't get stuff on the page. And I've broken it into 3 groups: expectation, talent, and preparation. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to cover all of them. And we're going to cover all the subdivisions underneath. And we're going to talk about what to do about it. Because ultimately, when we look at it just in a pure mechanical process, get it on the page, the things you need are as follows. And they are going to be universal. You need a page. You need a means of translating the idea onto that page. Now, whether that's a physical page with a pen, whether that's a keyboard and a monitor, whether that's a voice recording on your phone, whether that's a text message, whether that's a piece of legal pad, or whatever, a wall in your house, a wall on somebody else's house, tattoo it on the flesh of your enemies, I don't know. But the mechanical rote act is just about accomplishing it. But first we need to build the thing so that you can go put it on the page. And by and large, the number of people who have told me since I announced, hey, this is what we're going to talk about, the vast number of people who are like, I struggle with this. Well, it's because you probably fall into one of these 3 categories. And we're going to start with the first one. We're going to start with expectation. An expectation is the idea that you're expecting it to be a certain way. You might not use the word expect, you might use the word need, or you might use a phrase like, it has to be. But really all you're doing is you are using some amount of rigidity, some amount of stiffness, some amount of inflexibility in order to put a demand on your work so that you make it harder to actually produce it the way you want. It becomes, rather than an accomplishment, it becomes an obstacle because you need it to be a certain way. Because without that, if it doesn't come that way, it's wrong and bad. And we immediately jump to some kind of very negative perspective on it. Or worse, we think about it in terms of, well, the work's fine, but I'm the problem. I'm the one who's wrong and bad because why can't I get it out of my head this one particular way? Why is it not? And when I talk about that one way, it might be, why is it not perfect? Why is my first draft so full of errors? Why is it taking so long? Why is it not fill in the blank the way fill in the blank? And you fill in your own blanks there. That rigidity of needing it to be something other than I'm just putting my idea into words on the page. I'm making decisions and ideas go on the page. Making it any more than that is going to do two things. One, it's going to slow you way down because you're constantly going to try and force everything into this template, into this mold so that it comes out looking a certain way. Ignoring entirely that the next I don't know how many steps of the process have to do with shaping the idea. A second draft, a third draft, getting it edited, finalizing it, cleaning it up. All those steps have to do with shaping the idea. And you're already skipping ahead, I guess to minimize that, I guess to make it like it's not so difficult for the other people. We're going to talk about that in a second too. But you're on step 2. I've had an idea. That's step 1. Step 2, I'm going to start doing something with the idea. But you're talking about step 20. Oh, it's got to come out of my head perfect. Why? Who said? Why does it have to be perfect? It doesn't. It's a first draft. It's not even a first draft. It's a half of a near first draft. Nobody needs it to be perfect. It just needs to exist on the page. It does not need to be any certain way. It just needs to exist. Adding any extra pressure, sure, I guess it's a nice bragging point. I guess it's a nice look at me. I got this out in fewer problems than you did. We're going to talk about that in a second. But it just needs to not just make it not an idea. Write it down. Just write it down. We're going to talk about more specifically how to write it down later. But right now, rigidity, item number 1 on our list, is a real substantial problem for people. It's got to be this way. And they will, and when you poke this with a stick, just editorially coaching wise, when you poke it with a stick, even though people are very willing to admit it's not good, that they're rigid about it, they get really defensive. They super need to own the fact that I think this way. Like, it's a problem. I know it's a problem, but it's my problem. Damn it. Don't take it away from me. And frankly, look, it's a little funny. Like we both know it's a problem, but you're unwilling to let it go. I guess because you're comfortable with it. You don't like it, but you know it's there. And the lack of it, the possibility of the lack of it can freak you out. I get it. New things scare the hell out of me. I mean, shit, look, you're looking at a picture of me. You're not even looking at me. So I get it. Expectation, rigidity. It's got to be a certain way. The downside here is that it will stop you. It will stall you. You will take forever and a day to get where you want to get because you're trying so hard to make it look good or make it look like X, Y, or Z along the way. I did this with Twitch. Oh my God, I can't stream yet. I need all this. I need this and this and this. Oh, I can't run up, create long form episodic writing information content. I need this, this, and this. Oh, I can't, branch out this way. I need this and this. I can't do merch. I need this and this. And yeah, I did. I needed those things, but I could have also obtained those things or built those things while I was doing it, I could have started way sooner. Absolutely. I didn't have to wait. It didn't have to go first. It can be a growing, evolving, mobile, gelatinous thing that just takes time. And you work on it incrementally, just like writing. It's okay to not be rigid about it. It doesn't need to be anything other than done. That's item number 1. Let's go look at item number 2. This is more of a lens or a specification of item number 1, because these are the people, and I'm talking to you right now, these are the people who needed to be perfect before they go forward. I am one of these people. It wasn't enough just to go to Twitch. I had to go to Twitch with a million bells and whistles. It wasn't enough to, put together a recording studio in the house. It needed to have all this stuff. It wasn't enough to learn this skill. I had to learn it and do it like I had done it for a billion years. Because appearing imperfect, appearing unprepared, appearing fallible, human, all that stuff, somehow reflects badly on us. Or so says the thinking. Oh man, if I don't make a perfect, absolutely flawless thing, if my first draft isn't so damn near close to perfect, I'm some kind of bad creative. No, it's a first draft. And this is especially true for first-time writers. You've never done this before. Why on earth does it have to be perfect? You're going to get better at it over time. If you're already starting it perfect, how are you supposed to improve? You have to give yourself a chance to just get better. Perfectionism, particularly in the early stages, a perfect outline, a perfect synopsis, a perfect this, a perfect character, a perfect whatever, a perfect formula for understanding whatever. All of that stuff could be very useful. It could turn the light bulb on. It could be this really insightful thing like, I have a deeper understanding. But more than likely, it's a very clever excuse. It's a very clever excuse because it's easier to make that excuse than just outright say, I'm really scared. I'm not sure how to do this. I'm embarrassed about the fact that I don't know how to do this. So I'm just going to stay, sort of circling the idea, making sure I got it all, making sure I understand it, when really you're just plain afraid because you're afraid to screw up because you don't know how bad it's going to be and the unknown is scary. I get it. I super get it. Look at my entire life. It has all been built around the idea of I've got to know everything. I've got to know all the ins and outs. I got to know all the colors of the rainbow before I can step in and do something because otherwise I'll mess it up because I don't think highly enough of myself. And when that invades your writing, when that comes into what you're making, you run the risk of stalling out before you even get started. You run the risk of stopping just when you're getting good. You run the risk of building a habit and then running away from it because it freaks you out. It does not need to be perfect. It never needs to be perfect because, in fact, it never will be perfect. There are right now physical copies of books available for sale that have pronounced and huge numerous errors in them, despite editors, proofreaders, publishers, randos, everybody in between being as diligent as possible at the time in order to make it as best they can. But it's never going to be perfect. There is no perfect book. And when we talk about stuff that we think is perfect, it's a perfect movie, it's a perfect Tuesday, it's a perfect sandwich, it's a perfect whatever, it's subjectively perfect. The reason why I love root beer is because to me, root beer is an amazing beverage. I love root beer. It makes me happy because I associate a ton of good memories with it. And I've had great root beers that are fantastic cold. I've had terrible root beers that everybody raves about. I've had everything in between. But my definition of perfect is not your definition of perfect. My idea that some of the best things in the world are Tuesday afternoons underneath an Indiana sky, looking out at a cornfield, listening to random angry people fire guns at each other, because that makes me giggle and think to myself, wow, that's intense. I find that perfect. But I also find, a sunset in New York City in the dead of summer when it's about 92 degrees Fahrenheit with about 90% humidity, I find that perfect too. But perfect is subjective. It's not objective, and that includes creativity and making stuff. It's not going to be perfect. Perfect isn't helping you finish. Perfect isn't helping you get started. Perfect isn't helping you continue. Perfect is a label that you think you need to adopt so that you can feel good enough about what you're doing. And I'm telling you right now, flat out, you can feel good enough about what you're doing because of the fact that you're doing it. It's okay to be proud of yourself. It's okay to say, hey, I wrote a banger of a thing. That's good. You should do more of that. It's not embarrassing. It's not shameful. It's not boasting or bragging. It's just, hey, I did a thing. It's awesome. I'm really proud of myself. Good. Go be proud of yourself. That's fantastic. Please do more of that. It's not going to make you arrogant, or it's not going to be wrong or get shouted down. It's going to be celebrated. And if you're ever finding yourself in a situation where it is shouted down, you need to change situations, because there's nothing wrong with being proud of your work. And there's nothing wrong with feeling good about what you're making. But perfectionism is going to poison it. So how do we fight perfectionism? Well, it's hard. It's probably one of the hardest things on this list to deal with. But you can fight perfectionism by lowering your goals, but not your standards. So what do I mean? Well, you might say, like, I have a goal. I'm going to write, let's make up numbers. I'm going to write 500 words. And to you, that might be huge. That might be like a monumental writing day. If I can write 500 words, oh man, I'll be so happy. And you want them to be high quality. You want it to be strong. You want it to be a good scene. You want to be really excited about it. Awesome. All good stuff. But you might want to, in order to prevent getting hyper fixated on the fact that you're writing 500 words, you might want to say, well, you know what? I know I can write 250. So I'm going to aim for 250. And then anything from 251 onward, that's just bonus. That's just big, giant gold star, thumbs up, awesome sauce bonus. And you'll still get to 500, but you'll have the 250 from your goal and then 250 extra. It is okay to reduce your goal so that you can over-accomplish it, so that you can feel good about it. I know that sounds really dumb, especially if you're particularly cynical or if you're particularly averse to trying a strategy that isn't pushing yourself to maximum to the point of exhaustion because you feel the need to constantly overwork yourself. But it's really important that you know that you can set your own goals and then you can exceed them, and you're allowed to feel good about it, and you're in charge of every step in that process. You can make this all up as you go. It's totally fine. Perfectionism isn't helping. It's time we all put it down just a little bit. Third thing underneath expectation. This one I don't really see until we start looking at writers in groups, whether those are Discord communities or Facebook groups or email chains or just friend circles or reading groups or critique groups or whatever. You get a bunch of writers together, especially when they're all writing different stuff, or they're coming from different backgrounds, or they're not just all students in the same class, but they're coming in and they're bringing their own experiences with them. That's competition. Now, I believe pretty strongly that competition emerges in any group where the idea of horizontal growth is not encouraged. What do I mean by that? I think any group becomes competitive when the entire group is not made crystal clear that either everybody succeeds and everybody helps each other succeed, or there's no point to success. Those critique groups where people end up crowing about how much better they are than somebody else. Oh, I'm doing this, or you look at somebody else's work and say like, oh, that's the benchmark. That's where I got to go. No, it's not helping. It's not helping. It's not helping you put words on the page. It might feel like great motivation. It might be this fantastic thing where you say, yeah, but that other person's doing more or better or different than me. And if they can do it, I can do it. And yeah, that's true. If they can do it, you can do it, but you could have done it even if they didn't. But when you lock yourself into some kind of competition, especially the kind of competition where the other person doesn't realize they're your competitor, where it's like you're on a game show and the other person doesn't know they're playing along too, because you're trying to outright them or outsell them or outmarket them or out something them. That's where you run into trouble, because it turns whatever you're making, it turns whatever you're doing away from this thing that you're making for your own reasons, for your own benefit, for your own enjoyment, and it turns it into, well, I'm not doing this for me now. I'm doing this strictly and entirely on some level to stick it to the other person. I need to be better than them. Why? Just why? Let's follow this to its logical conclusion. Let's just think through this idea just for a second, okay? So you're breathing fire. You're real fired up about this idea that you got to be better than somebody else. You got to do better. You don't like this person, whatever they are. They're a jerk. They're mean. They're rude. They're dumb. They're annoying. They're whatever. You don't like them, and you got to do better. Sure, fine, okay. Let's suppose you do better. Then what? What are you gonna do? Is it gonna make the other person less annoying? Do they realize that you just did whatever it is you did because they annoyed you? Thank you so much for following. I really appreciate that. Thanks for coming. I hope you stick around. It's wonderful to see you. Is this going to change the problem at all? Like, you're pushing yourself to outdo this other person. Oh, I'm writing more than they are. I'm better than they are. I'm getting better feedback. I'm talking to more folks. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Great, cool, neat, delightful. Is it changing anything, though? I mean, other than it's getting your stuff done, are you happy, though? Do you like coming to this creative thing that you started off doing for your own personal reasons? Do you like coming to it with the intention of, like, trying to beat somebody else at it? Does that make it fun anymore? Because it's got to be fun. Because it's a hard job. It's a job. It's difficult. There's going to be moments, and we're going to talk about them soon, that are not casual. Like, you got to roll your sleeves up sometimes. So why on earth would you put yourself in a position where you're doing it strictly to push against somebody else? Like, they're on their own journey. They're doing their own thing, and who knows if they'll finish. Fun fact, the majority of people you run into in, like, really big communities, they're never going to finish. They're never going to get published, and you're busy competing against them. The same is also true for contests. You ever notice the duplicity in those contests? This idea that, hey, we're all in it together, we're all going to succeed, but then when it comes contest time, they're willing to step on each other in order to get a shot. Do you ever wonder why that is? It's because fostering the idea of competition doesn't actually help anybody succeed. It keeps people fighting rather than making progress. So while you're busy competing with all those group members, while you're busy competing with all the entrants in the hashtag writing community contest of your choice, you're not getting anywhere. The focus should be on you getting your idea on that page. There's no reason to compete. It's not like there's only 5 readers in the world, and whoever gets a book done first is going to get one of those 5 readers, and then you win something. I don't know. 1 of 5 people saying good job, I guess. But readers are not a finite, limited resource. They're not trees on the planet. There's loads of readers. There's loads of readers coming in every day. You can always find more readers. They might not be the writers in your writing group, but there are still other humans on the planet you can reach. But competition does not serve. Competition harms because it shifts the focus away from making production about, I'm going to tell the best story I can because I love telling stories, and it turns it into, well, I don't like Susan, so I'm going to make sure I do better than her because Susan's hella annoying. If there's a Susan out there, I don't mean you. I'm talking about virtual Susan, the Susan I've just created. but I'm sure you, Susan, listening to this, you know what you did. The important thing is that competition is going to wreck more than help what you're doing. Now, those three things are sort of the biggies for me. They're the biggies when I talk to other writers. They're the biggies when I hold chats. They're the implied subcurrent or undertow that draws through conversations. I talk to plenty of writers. They need it to be a certain way. They demand it be perfect so that somebody will validate their efforts. They need to know that they're doing better than other people because they're trying to rank themselves or whatever. And in response to all those expectations, I'm going to say this. I'm going to be really, really clear about it so that you understand. You should be doing this for you, for your own goals, for your own means. And while loads of other people are doing it more or less at the same time, they are not your competition. They are not trying to beat you to the race. This is not capitalism. It's just not. Despite everybody's efforts to try and smush like a capitalist lens on it, you are making art. You're making art. Now, it requires some effort. We're going to talk about that next. But by and large, these are not your competition. They're not even really your coworkers. They're just other people trying to do the same thing. And everybody has plenty of space to go do their own thing. Now, if you're tempted to compare your stuff to other people's stuff because you're feeling, I don't know, insecure about your stuff, well, then what you need to be doing is asking yourself, well, why do I feel insecure about it? I'm not really happy with how this turned out, or I'm hoping somebody else likes this, or I want them to like it. And that leads us to a really important point, a really, really critical point. No matter what you're writing, no matter what genre it is, no matter what book it is, no matter who you are, what, you cannot ever control how the reader responds. You can put them in the ballpark. You can say, gosh, I really hope they enjoy this scene. I hope they laugh at the joke. I hope they, feel worried for the hero at the darkest moment. But you cannot write a thing that absolutely 1,000 million % guarantees 1,000 million times out of 1,000 million times to get one specific reaction because of free will. Because that's not how art works. Because you can't force a reader to have a particular reaction. You can encourage one. You can reduce the number of possible options they have, but you cannot outright force it. So when you're feeling insecure about your work, when you're sitting there going, God, I just really hope they like it, and I don't know if they will, you need to ask yourself, okay, well, what am I going for? What feeling do I want them to have? What's the more or less the range? I want them to feel happy. I want them to feel sad. I want them, and this can be broad and this can be specific. That's fine. But if you know the rough target you're trying to reach, and you can point to the things on the page where you have attempted to reach it, that is all you can do. The example we learn in school when we get taught this very brief lesson in graduate school is, I want you to think about a dartboard. So you've got a dart in your hand. Now, I'm terrible at darts. I'm wretched at darts. I'm really good at hitting the wall and not the board. The idea of scoring in darts, absolutely, whatever. You might as well tell me that they're letters of the alphabet and secret codes to travel through time. I don't know. But I like the motion. I like the activity. I like the sound a dart makes when it hits the board. I think that's cool. I always thought they were really undervalued and underappreciated weapons in Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, they're darts. But when you stand there at the bar with your dartboard and your dart in your hand, the only way you can absolutely guarantee where the dart ends up is if you individually walk the dart directly to the board and place it in exactly the spot you want. But that is not how you perform the task of throwing a dart. If you're carrying it by hand like it's the bullet in Hamilton, and there's just somebody pinching it and walking it all the way around to where it needs to go, you're never really doing the most critical part of art, which is releasing it into the world. You have to let it go. You have to throw the dart. And you got to trust that where you've aimed and how you've thrown it will get it to more or less the spot you're trying to hit. And you can work on your mechanics. We'll talk about that in a second. You can work on your throw. You can practice relentlessly. You can, do it drunk. You can do it sober. You can do it high. You can do it blindfolded. You can do it behind your back. You can have somebody blow on it for good luck. You can do a billion things. But eventually at some point, you got to throw that dart. Eventually at some point, you have to release that dart, and wherever it goes is wherever it goes. And the best you could do was aim it. And the same is true for your book. You can write it. You can write it all you want, but at some point you got to just trust that you've aimed the dart where you want to go. Now, along the way, the nice thing that makes darts different than writing is that thank you so much. The nice difference between darts and a book is that in the course of writing a book, there are loads of people who you can consult, loads of things you can do to make sure that your book is going in the direction you want, to the degree you want it, the whatever controls you want. You can have somebody come in and go, okay, this is what's up. Here's how this gear is processing. Here's how this stuff is happening. Whereas when you chuck a dart at the wall, well, I mean, there's air resistance and some other physics terms I cannot remember at this time. Please, Mrs. Rawlings, don't get mad at me. It's been a long day. But yeah, nobody else is really there to check the dart. You can get somebody after the fact, go, hey, you got to lift your elbow next time, or, follow through, or other dart-related terms. But in the course of projecting the dart, there's nobody coming along to steer it. And that's what makes writing better than darts, because there's always an editor or an agent or some friends or some professionals or some feedback you can solicit in order to make sure that your book is going into the world, your art is going into the world in a way that really matters, in a way that you intend. It's a hugely critical point that really, really needs to be developed here. Pay attention to that part. Because it somewhat awkwardly but reasonably segues into the next chunk of what we're talking about. So let's suppose we dispense with the expectations. Let's suppose we dispense with the ideas of, well, I don't need it to be a certain way. It's not a mental thing. But we're talking about the act of doing it. And this might be where a lot of people jump off the train. Just letting you know things are going to get a bit spicy. Because I want to talk about talent and skill. Because there are a lot of people out there writing books. And they have a lot of very ambitious ideas. And they do not have the craft, ability, or knowledge to support the idea. It's a great idea. It's a wonderful idea. But you are not at the time able to do it. You got to spend more practice. You got to do stuff. Now, this might include stuff like the actual language that you're writing in. If you're trying to work in a language that's relatively new to you, you're not terribly fluent with it, you might struggle with it. Now, if you're writing in your language that you're natively fluent in, there's still an art to it, a way you can compose ideas so that words chained together put images inside the reader's head. Or as we say around here, putting a movie in their mental theater. That responsibility, the strength of craft, comes from experience, comes from exposure, comes from practice. It comes to some degree in part of consuming other media. But we'll get there in a second, because there's a big-ass caution. Because the problem is when you consume one particular flavor of media over and over and over again because you really like it, that quality becomes a new benchmark for you. But we'll talk about that when we talk about overall technical skill. That's coming up. For now, just the idea overall that you've got a great idea, but you do not have the craft to deliver it yet, means that whatever you're trying to do now, it's okay. It's fine. It's not the end of the world that you're writing it. But understand that if you're taking a real big swing and it feels very complicated to you and it feels very big and there's a lot of moving parts, if you are unwilling to simplify and break down the parts so that this takes longer because you're being more diligent, you're being more prudent, you're being more careful, if you're unwilling to simplify just in terms of what you're constructing at the time you're constructing it, This is going to be a case where you're going to start writing it and it's going to have to go sit in a box for a while. It's going to have to go sit over there until you're ready for it. I don't have another dartboard example for this. I have a food example. So, I don't know if you've had this experience, but have you ever been to a place where they've served food and you know what it is? Like it's a protein, it's a vegetable, but you're looking at the presentation, you're looking at how well it's cooked, you're looking at the sauce it's with and all those other bits and pieces, and it's just absolutely like, oh shit, I bet I could do this at home. Like, not because you feel ripped off, but because you're so impressed by it. Well, that's because the skill of the person making it is likely very superior to yours because they spend all their time making it. And it's as much true about food as it is for any productive art like woodworking or blacksmithing or making stuff. Because yeah, if you handed me like a sharp knife and a piece of wood, I guess eventually I could carve something. But that guy over there who's been doing it for like 60 years, who's been doing it for, 6 hours a day every day for 60 years, that dude's going to whittle the hell out of it. Like that's his jam. He's going to do it. Technical skill improves over time with practice, but we don't only practice the hyper complicated things. When we get into a sport, no matter the sport, we don't immediately start practicing at the highest level. When we're in elementary school and we want to learn football or something, we don't suddenly train at the highest championship level. When you're learning how to swim, they don't throw you into the ocean with the people trying to set global records, or they take you to the Olympics. No, they put little swimmy things on your arms and you float in the pool and you learn how to put your face in the water. Now, for a lot of people, there's a great deal of ego and embarrassment tied up in this because they don't like to admit that they're new at it. They're new at their version of swimming. I'm not a great writer, not because I'm a bad person, but because I haven't written a lot. And it's hard to know where in terms of newness I am. I can do a little bit of the basics, but how do I get better? If we're using our swimming analogy, I don't need like the little floaty devices on my arms, but maybe I still need a kickboard. Or maybe I need to do fewer laps, or maybe I just need to stick to the shallower ends of the pool for now. There's nothing wrong with that. It only turns into a problem when we start comparing ourselves with other people for other things. Oh. So, that's why competition was a problem, by the way. Because it sets up this expectation that wherever you are in your journey must inherently be bad compared to somebody else. And it's not. You can improve your technical skill. You can improve your craft. It's going to come from multiple sources. It's not enough just to watch, if you're writing something and you're like, oh, it's influenced by, show X. So then you go watch show X and all the shows related to show X. Yeah, that's some part responsible and kind of sort of like, trying to do a thing. Like, yeah, that's going to help a little. But at the end of the day, if you really want to get better, yeah, you got to do more than just watch the thing that's inspiring the work you're doing. You want to be a screenwriter, yes, you should watch more movies. Yes, you should totally watch movies that are really good that you enjoy. But you should also read scripts, write scripts, think about dialogue, read technical manuals, talk to more writers. There's plenty more stuff to do beyond just the single serving of media. Because craft is a multi-armed Hydra octopus. Hydrapus? Hydrapus. Let's go with that. I think is that the thing from Zelda? That's going to bug me. Anyway, it's got multiple arms and multiple heads. It's just all arms and heads. It's like my aunt. It's just everywhere. Because improving your craft requires lots of different trains. Lots of different training in lots of different areas. Not actual trains, although it might include trains if we're writing about trains. But improving your craft means admitting that you're not where you want to be yet. And there's nothing wrong with that. There was a comment I wanted to respond to. The example I just talked about, I thought I was going to write like Da Vinci when I first tried it. It did not end up like that. Yes, absolutely. We read an author we like. Oh man, I just got into this new series. It's so great. This thing's a real, the characters are real badass. It's such a good story. Okay, cool. We don't know how long it took that author to get to that point. We don't know how many times it was edited. We don't know the number of people who had input on this. We don't know how long it took. We don't know how it was written. We're just seeing the finished product. We cannot measure our yet to be produced thing according to this finished product. We can aspire towards it in this direction. One day, if we keep doing the stuff we're doing, we can get to a place similar to this, but we can't get there because that's not our space. That's that guy's space. You have to be willing to admit your craft is imperfect and that it's not complete. That doesn't make you bad. It doesn't mean you failed. You don't have to, have 100% mastery in skill level 1 before you move to skill level 2. But you do need to understand that your craft is an evolving thing that's going to evolve because of all the different ways you engage with media, not just watching your favorite thing and hyper fixating on the ideas of your single story. One of the ways that whole idea sort of turns on the page, where it becomes very apparent that, oh, you're taking a bigger swing than you can do, or as they say in Top Gun, your body's writing checks that your mouth is writing checks that you can't cash. I really fucked up that thing, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Is voice. The vast majority of writers I talk to have a very complicated story structure. Oh, it's a story of betrayal with a double redemption arc, and there's a plot twist and a time travel subplot, and it's about a ghost, and it's, then there's a bear and it's eating peanut butter without a spoon, and then there's a tiger and it drives the car, and then it's about brothers, but it's also about like siblings and generations, and they'll iterate this big, massive story structure. All these bells. It's a series. It's going to be 11 books, and Amazon's going to buy it, and I'm going to have enough money to take care of my mom, and I'm going to be able to buy like 2 PS5s, and it's going to be great. And then when you go talk to them about their work, and you ask them how it's going, and you start looking at sample pages, or they share stuff with you, it's a nice presentation of story fact. This character did this thing. They went over here. They did this. They did that. They said this. They said that. But it is absent the understructure. It is absent the internal architecture. One of those big things being voice. It doesn't sound like you. It doesn't sound like anybody. It is just a procedural manual following characters attempting tasks. And that's not what voice is. It doesn't make a point. It doesn't have a particular style or skill in shaping the words. It doesn't have that at all. It's just, here's this character. They think this. They feel this. They swing this sword. They do the thing. This happens. Voice is how we torque the picture, how we tilt it, how we add a little color, how we adjust the tint, how we make it slightly different, and how we personalize it. It's one of the first major fingerprints we can leave on our work. How we choose to put the images in the reader's head. How we choose to get our ideas across. It's as much the words we choose, just like jazz music, it's the words we don't choose. How we choose to describe something because we're picking these 5 words, but not those 10 words, says something about the point we're trying to make. That's really important. Voice is a huge thing that stems from confidence and a surety in knowing not just the story stuff you want to say, but the point you're trying to make. By creating that, double twisting generational story, you have a point to make about family and brotherhood. Right? Or did you just string ideas together because you thought it made a cool, badass fight scene? When we're shaping and building voice, and when voice is absent, we fix it by developing confidence. Which, if you're already somebody who's wondering like, oh God, I had to be confident. This is, I'm terrible at this. This is so hard for me. I don't like this. I'm really struggling. I'm not good enough for that. you're in for a very bad experience as a writer. You need confidence in this job. Unless you are very happy, sort of just doing it on the side, never getting where not really going to publish it, just kind of like write it because you enjoy it with, those aspirations of being published and paying the mortgage and this, that, and the other, all that stuff. You got to put those to the side if you're missing that confidence. The confidence to know that I have this point to make. I have this story I'm going to tell. I am getting better at telling it over and over, progressively, more and more. I'm learning as I go. I'm asking challenging questions. I'm pushing myself. I'm setting deadlines. I'm meeting my deadlines. I'm getting my ass in the chair. I'm doing the best I can. Confidence. Not arrogance, not that competitive sense of, I'm better than you. What are you going to do about it? Nothing like that at all. Just the plain and simple confidence that you wrote the hell out of chapter 10. And it's good now, but you know what? After you get it edited, after you get some feedback, I bet you can make it better. Confidence. You need to believe in yourself because there's a lot of emotional risk involved in this job. Whether we're traditionally publishing or self-publishing or, shaving hieroglyphics into cats and then presenting them down the street in a parade in order for people to read your story, whatever. Confidence. You need it. And voice is one of the first ways you demonstrate it. Voice matters. Put a gold star by it. The other sort of third of this triad, confidence comes from success, and success comes from practice. So it's a process, and it can't happen overnight. Absolutely. You will get confident if you keep doing the thing you're doing. It just takes time, which also means you have to bring its partner, patience. But we'll talk about that later. But there's a sort of a third to this triad when we talk about talent and skill. Because talent is a legit thing. And this is the sticking point where a lot of people get real cranky. Because they immediately devalue themselves and go, well, I'm not talented. I don't have that. It's unfair. It's somebody else. It's never going to be me. What about me? What about Raven? I'm throwing that in there for Jeff because I always try to get at least one good wrestling reference in a day. There you go, Jeff. That's for you. The talent is a real thing. It's not necessarily easily quantifiable, but it's one of those things we can point to it when we see it. Now, the wrinkle in that is that the stuff we're pointing to, those published books, those were chosen by a person. And we are given that definition of talent. But you can develop your talent before you're chosen, if that makes sense. You can get better at a talent. You can develop it. There are some people flat out, and you know them. You've probably encountered them. You've probably talked to them at some point in the last month who want to be a writer, would love to be a writer, but you read their stuff and they don't have it. No matter how hard you remind them, how frequently you remind them, or what you tell them, or to the degree you tell them, they're just missing it, but you're not quite sure entirely what it is. It is talent. That talent is an innate ability to see the world in a less rigid and more creative, imaginative way. It's the ability to parse the world in such a way that you can influence or develop emotions in others and then share it. That can be developed, but it's got to start innately. There's got to be a little bit of a seed for the thing to grow. Because those people who don't have it will always turn it into questions. They will always turn it into, well, what about this and what about that and how does this do? They will overthink it. But on some level, there's nothing to overthink. It's you have a view on things, and how does it make you feel, and then what do you do about it? Your ability to access that kind of answer, your ability to access those emotions, make the distinction between a writer who will transform into an author and move forward versus somebody who's going to be constantly spinning their wheels, and you're going to be banging your head for the next however many years trying to have the same conversation about how, hey, that's not how a character arc works. What are you doing? I want to spare you that. because like that's my job sometimes, and it's oof. There's a lot of sighing when that happens. But I don't want to give you the impression. I really, truly do not want to give you the impression that only like 2 people out of the millions of people who exist have talent, because that's not the case. Competition will make you think that's the case, because that way we all keep competing. But by and large, your ability to parse story and figure things out matters. And your ability to access the emotional spectrum of things, the emotional depth and range, and the ability to connect with other people, that's a talent. That's a thing that can be developed. And some people can be developed more than others. And that's part of what makes some writers more successful in the long run than others. That's really like the heavy, spicy one. I was expecting more like pushback, and I'm glad to see it wasn't. So thank you for bearing with me on that. There's one more set. I'm going to get a mouthful of water, though, before I get all like at the microphone. So give me a second. If you have questions so far, fire away. Oh, that's delightful. That is some fine filtered water. All right. Thanks, man. It's really nice to have you here. Thanks for checking this out. I really appreciate it, you guys. Side note, just for me, because I figured this out and I'm really proud of it. In the middle of the screen, more or less, there's like a little follower count. I'm trying to reach 75 because that sounds like a big-ass number. I'm working on it. We're putting some bells and whistles on this thing because I'm starting to figure out, like, hey, if I press this button, it doesn't super break. Although I should point out that there's like... I've apparently dropped some frames, but it's okay. We'll figure it out. Anyway. Yeah, we're doing good. We're doing the best we can to grow this thing. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it. You know, we're doing okay. It's growing along. The active arm of this community, such that Twitch is good. I got into a fight with YouTube today. I'm not streaming Call of Duty. First of all right, so fun fact. My brother and I used to play Call of Duty. He, of course, vastly better. I'm terrible at Call of Duty. Forgetting entirely, like, my insistence on let's not shoot people with guns. But I'm actively terrible at it. Like, it doesn't even matter that I'm old now. Even when I was, like, in my video game prime, I just, like, shooters were never my thing. First-person games make me, like, so overwhelmed and so stressed out. You give me a sports game, I'm there. You give me an RPG, a simulation, I'm there all day. But the minute you turn it into something like a fighting game or a shoot, nope. Thanks so much. I'll try it. I'll enjoy it. I'll play solo with all the difficulty scaled down. But yeah, you put another person in there with me, and I'm nope. Not my jam. Never was. So, yeah, I hope we all understand, like, hey, there's some dropped frames. Apparently on Twitch that means my genitals are shrinking or something. I mean, I don't feel any less gendered or something. So, I don't know. But apparently it's a very big deal on the interwebs. That and whatever resolution I'm streaming in. Because I guess that speaks to my quality as a human. That's for the hot tub streams. Dude, if I will tell you right now, I have lost 2 full people's worth of body weight, and I'm totally down to, like, sit in a hot tub, but I am really terrified of, like, putting streaming equipment near a hot tub. That just seems like a recipe for disaster. So there will be no Writer Next Door hot tub streams. Unless, like, I'm not in the hot tub and we're watching someone else in a hot tub. Then I'm totally down for that. Maybe I'll see if there's got to be some way, right? Like I can hook up with a hot tub streamer and we can like collab. Is that a thing people still do? Like a hip hop album? I really have to investigate that. That'll be my interesting thing for tomorrow. Anyway, shall we move on as my viewership hemorrhages? All right, let's move on. So we've covered expectations and how they how they can hold us back from getting things on the page. We talked about talent and skill and how what we need to be doing is practicing and developing, even if it's not being perfect, because remember, we're not doing perfect. But we have to develop our talents and skills and our technique and our experiences. Kafufu? You got me on that one, bro. I don't know what that is. So, right on. I don't know what I'm agreeing to. So, in the face of lacking skill, we just need to develop more skill. In the face of... What's up? Is there a crisis? Give me some kind of idea here. Else I will just steamroll ahead. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to steamroll ahead if the world starts going on fire. No, it's totally fine. So, we can develop talent. We can abandon some expectations. And that leads us to the third set of things, preparation. This is one of those things where people get defensive again. I'm not entirely sure why they get defensive about it, but they get real defensive about it. I think because they take it as a personal affront or some kind of great attack. And it's not supposed to be. It's just an observation. And if you're reading into it, that's going to say way more about you than the person on the other end of it. Because one of the major reasons why we struggle to get stuff on the page is that we have failed to prepare to put stuff on the page on multiple different fronts to multiple varying degrees. And we're talking about stuff like understanding that writing is the act of making decisions. And if you're struggling to get words on the page because you're not making decisions, well, I could go this way. What about this? What about that? You're failing the first fundamental thing of writing. You've got to make decisions. The solution, by the way, make decisions. Again, remember, this doesn't need to be perfect. There's no rigidity here. It's just transforming the idea from an electrochemical signal in your brain to written, facilitated language on some kind of screen or page. So put it on the page. You can always change it later. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be done. So make some decisions. Yes, I absolutely understand. You could go in one of 6 different ways. Pick one. Write it down for now. Writing is the act of making decisions. So make decisions. Writing is the act of making decisions. Step number 1. Beyond that, once we understand that we've just got to make a string of decisions, there's a certain amount of discipline that requires, or discipline that is required, I should say, to keep making those decisions. If you're somebody who swears up and down, oh man, I'm going to write this big ass book. It's going to be this whole thing. It's going to be like 100,000 words with elves and shit. There's going to be all this stuff. It's going to be huge and great and big. And you're not used to sitting down and writing for more than like 10 minutes at a clip because you just get distracted or bored, or you kind of space out and you get real interested in what's going on over there. Or you do what I do and you pull up a website on your phone and then you realize that, oh, wait, I'm doing this thing. And then you go try and pull up the same website, maybe on the monitor instead, as if it somehow changed in 2 seconds. The discipline you apply to the activity you're doing is going to directly affect whether or not you get your idea on the page. You got to put your ass in the chair. The words will not miracle themselves into existence without you expressing them. And if this is where people are like, oh no, then my problem is the chair. Look, I know that chairs are expensive. I get it. I super get it. But at the same time, there are still other mediums for you to translate your words from an idea to some other medium. Yes, open Reddit, close Reddit, open Reddit again. I do the same thing with Twitter too. I'm scrolling through tweets and then I'm like, hey, you know what I should do? I should check Twitter, even though I literally just did. Yeah, same process. Exactly the same issue. When it's time to write, it needs to be time to write. We check our watch. Okay, it's writing time. And then we go write. Now, I understand for a lot of people, they hear that and they're like, but I have all these things. I have a family and kids, and I get it. I know. For the older crowd, I hear you. I get it. I know. And we got to be real judicious in how we carve out our free time and how we sort of control it. And when the door is closed, it's our time. And when the door is open, it's there. Like, I get it. I know. But when we do have the time and it's more than something incidental, we need to be serious about it. And we need to take advantage of it. Because it's not going to happen otherwise. Waiting for the right confluence of planets, astrological symbols, silent children, non-nagging partners, silence in the house, the right playlist, the breeze coming through the window, just the certain, whatever. Waiting for all those things means you're going to be waiting a good goddamn long time. You need to be able to summon discipline and go, okay, I'm writing. And then you write. And whether you measure by word count or measure by time spent or whether by page count or whether just by, I'm going to get the scene out and it takes me however long it takes me, none of that matters. What matters is this is the time you are taking to accomplish the task. And it doesn't need to be perfect. Remember that first step. Doesn't need to be perfect. Doesn't need to look like a certain way. It just needs to be on the page. And I'm going to do that by making decisions. And the discipline I exercise in completing those decisions helps make this thing happen. Too many writers, hell, even too many authors have such delightfully horseshit applesauce and mayonnaise reasons for why they can't be disciplined. I'm not talking about like legit things where there's some, physical, chemical issues in the way. Or there's some neurodivergence that needs to be, coped or sorted or addressed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about after all that. When it comes down, after the coping strategies, after the therapies, after the medications, after the this, after the that, the plain and simple fact so often comes down to they love talking about being a writer. They don't like doing the writing. You've maybe encountered these people in your circles where they just love having like different writer adjacent things. They want to have little contests. They want to do giveaways. They want to have you share different things people are writing. But they never seem to get around to doing that writing themselves. Because the discipline and the focus aren't positioned about the writing. It's about being near writing. It's about being near creatives. Way back in the day, 20 years ago, when I worked in radio, the polite term for this was star fucking. Because there were loads of people who wanted to hang out near celebrities. Because it was great. It was a lot of fun. They'd throw money around and it was delightful. This was back when everybody had money. And it was but they never did any real thing themselves. They were just kind of hangers on. They were nice people. I was friends with them for many, many drug-fueled years. But at the end of the day, they didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to be near somebody else doing stuff. Now, they would say things like, oh, well, they inspire me. It's really great. I like being in their orbit. But mostly it's because they didn't have to do so much. They could give the appearance of working. Same is true for writers. This idea that, I'm in this writing community. It's about being a writer. It's about knowing the right stuff. It's about making sure the right questions get asked, right? Like I'm doing all the things I think writers perform, except for the part where writers write. Your discipline needs to be there, and it needs to be something you summon and you control so that you accomplish your goal. Without that, you're just going to spin your wheels. You're just going to spin your wheels. And I don't want you to do that. It's hella frustrating. You deserve better than that. Discipline matters. Somewhat related to discipline is the idea of a timetable. And I see this with newer writers especially writers who haven't done this before. A timetable. They want it done fast. They need it done because they want the success. What that's doing, what that suggests, what that speaks to is this idea that the end result's more important than the journey. And when we're talking about creating art, it's all journey. And misunderstanding that idea is huge. How we get better at it is part of the process. How we get better at it so that we can command higher amounts of money, so that we can get more sales, so that we can be successful, so that we can get the end result we want, means the focus has to be on the production, has to be on the effort, has to be on the doing rather than the have done. When people race a timetable, when they rush and they say, it shouldn't be taking me this long, it's got to be faster. Why? I am willing to bet large sums of invisible internet money that it comes down, plain and simple, to you just want the end result and you're tired of being frustrated at the position you're in. The writing is hard. The writing is taking too long. I'm frustrated. I'm impatient. Yeah, well, this is the job. Writing requires you to do the writing. There are going to be parts you don't like. There's going to be big-ass parts you don't like. There's going to be whole sections you get tired of. There are going to be drafts you don't like writing. There's going to be emails you don't like writing. There's going to be invoicing you don't like doing. There's going to be parts of a job you don't like. They have to get done, though. Racing it for no substantiated reason other than just say, I want it. I want it done. I want to be published. I want to get legit. And you elevate your language, some of you, about like how you need to be published so that you can be legit. You were already legit. Also, what do you mean legit? You mean taken seriously by the two people who probably don't care that you've made the art in the first place? Like for me, it's about getting my dad to say he likes my work, but he's never going to like my work. So what am I doing? I'm not going anywhere. You're going to get where you want to get based not on how quickly you get it there, but how often you put in the effort to get there. Let's use a different comparison. Let's suppose we all decide we're going to go get in shape. And we say to ourselves, all right, we're going to go to the gym. We don't walk into the gym the first day and say, like, I want to get into, like, Marvel character shape. Let's go. Because if we did, we'd get real frustrated because that's an awful lot of boiled chicken and broccoli and many, many, many sit-ups. And this is day one. And if we started off on boiled chicken and broccoli and sit-ups, we will probably not make day two. Just, that's the way people are. But we need to focus on a timetable to help us reach our goals that facilitates our effort. You're new at this. And I'm going to talk straight to the new writers. You're new at this. What do you want to rush for? There will still be an audience for your book. Where you might want to worry, where you might want to put like a few notes of concern, is if you are writing for a trend or writing to capitalize on a thing. For right now, that would be anything pandemic related. And you are urgent to get your material out so that it's still falling within that umbrella of popular, current, ongoing stuff. Those are the people who probably have the most understandable reason to hurry. But by and large, a lot of writers are just writing a story that can be put out whenever. You can query it whenever. Are sometimes better than others? Yes. Do I expect a new writer who's never done this before to know the exact times when some genres sell better than others? No, not at all. Side note, if you want those answers, come back here on Wednesday and I'll tell you exactly when things are published. But that's a different issue. And I would not expect a writer who's still in the middle of writing a second draft to even give a shit about the fact that some kinds of books sell better in November than in April. That's okay. You don't need to know everything. But our timetable, whatever it is, our urgency and impatience is going to drag us down, and it's going to lock us up, and it's going to bottleneck our creativity because we're going to get frustrated with our production. Oh my God, it's not happening fast enough. I got to do more. So then you force it. And then you're further dissatisfied with what you're doing because now you forced it. So then you beat yourself up some more. And then you force it, I shouldn't have, I'm a piece of shit. And you run yourself down. I'm a piece of shit. This sucks. It's garbage. I don't like doing any of it. And then the next time you sit down to write, you're carrying that baggage. I don't know why. You just are. No one asked you to, but you still are. I wish you wouldn't. Whatever timetable you set, it should facilitate you making progress. I'm not talking, and I want to be real clear because I know some of the people in chat. I'm not talking about setting a deadline and then blowing it off. You need to be able to hit deadlines. Because as you progress further down this writing, authorship, publishing, creative journey, there are going to be deadlines given to you, imposed on you by outside forces that are not going to be blow-offable. If you traditionally publish and your publisher says, if you want to get paid, I need this book done by this date, and it's really important to you that you get paid, you better have that book done before that date. You can blow it off. You're always free to not follow it, but understand that getting known for not following deadlines, that's not an easy thing to shake off. It's real bad. Though I should point out that if you're the sort of author who frequently blows deadlines, you're going to end up having a lot of conversations with people like me, because I am often hired to talk to people about why they don't like dealing with deadlines. A fun fact, it often comes down to, I don't think my work is good enough, and I would much rather do things on my own terms. So, good news, you can do things on your own terms earlier in the process, like while you're still writing your drafts. Those are the biggies. What's up? Okay. Those are the biggies. Those are our three major elements: preparation, skill and talent, and expectation. Those are the barriers, those are the hurdles that keep us from putting stuff on the page. For a lot of it, for a lot of the process, it has very little to do with the specifics of the story we're telling. It doesn't matter if we're writing science fiction or fantasy or horror or a romance novel or whatever. It just comes down to, I don't want to, or I don't know how to, or I'm not entirely certain of this expectation, and I'm trying to control the uncontrollable. And I have an expectation and a demand on a thing I can't do anything about. I need it to go a certain way. I need it to be liked. I need it to be good enough. I want to move forward. And the vast majority of that stuff's out of your hands. And you should probably let it be out of your hands. It's just better that way. Because your focus, as somebody writing a thing, should be, plain and simple, on writing a thing. And however long it takes is however long it takes. We have not dismantled the system well enough so that you're going to eventually wake up tomorrow and there won't be agents or publishers. We're not there yet. Hopefully soon, hopefully sometime in my lifetime. But for now, here we are. Saying do more to myself eventually led me to do nothing. Yeah. I completely understand. It was way too much pressure for no good reason. Yeah. It's how I had heart attack number 3. Also, you're back. Hello. The chair is still working great. Yes. The chair I'm sitting in, maybe you can tell right now, but I'm leaning way away from the microphone. And now I'm leaning forward into the microphone. This chair is awesome. Love this chair. Big fan of this chair. The Amazon link to this chair is in the Discord, by the way, if you want to grab this chair. I lost my train of thought. Hi, Kat. Yes. Linus is here. Luna is downstairs meowing because she just was. I think she was just expressing her displeasure with the fact that she ate everything and there's not going to be a third meal today or a fourth meal today. So, yeah, we're all good. I want to wrap this thing up today with a really simple point I didn't get to make Wednesday. So consider this bonus content, you guys. Somebody asked me kind of like 2 minutes before I went out, I went live on Wednesday, what differences, what changes after you get published for the first time? And the truth is, some stuff does and some stuff doesn't. So let me see if I can explain this in a way that allays some fears. All right? Here's what changes. You will know how the process works. You'll have gone through it already. You will know the steps of write several drafts, revise them, get them edited, get them published, get it revised during publication, get a cover, package it all together, market it. You will have gone through that at least once. I don't know to what level of success or degree, but you will have gone through the steps, so they will not be totally new to you at the time. But the steps themselves, writing drafts, revising it, getting feedback, getting it edited, submitting it, packaging it, marketing it, the internal steps don't change, other than it's just the content. As the song says, the streets don't change, but maybe the names. Maybe it's a matter of, well, now, whereas last time we were marketing a sci-fi book that was a first in the series, now we're doing a sci-fi book that's book number 2 in the series. But I still have to write more than 2 drafts. It still has to be edited. It still needs a cover. It still needs a title. It still needs all those pieces. You've done it once before, so now it's differently challenging. Because sometimes some authors, especially for second books, fear what marketing refers to as the sophomore slump, which is some capitalist bullshit that we are indoctrinated with, that you have to constantly keep escalating the bar, keep raising it, keep doing more, keep doing better, which is just another form of competition, which we already talked about an hour and 11 minutes ago. It does not necessarily get easier every book. The process might get more comfortable, more streamlined, but it never gets easier. You're always going to have to write. You're always going to need it edited. You're always going to need a cover. You're always going to need to market it. But by and large, you will get more familiar with each of those steps. And you will be more adaptable? Let's go with adaptable. You'll be more adaptable to different ways of accomplishing things. You know, one of the critical things you're going to need to do to operate in a more successful way is outline. And for a lot of writers, especially new writers, they get real feisty about it because they've heard way too many people make way too many excuses, and they just assume that it's true. That an outline will rob you of creativity, or that an outline inhibits your flow, or an outline is, I don't know, it has cooties and their mother dresses it funny or something. No, there's an outline. It's a critical tool for mapping out a story, especially those big-ass giant stories that everybody wants to write. Over time, as you write more and more frequently, and as you get better at it, and as your voice develops, and as your confidence increases, and as your skill improves, those things that were once obstacles, outlines, marketing, talking about your book, those things get easier because you will have done it more. It builds familiarity. And that's really a thing I wish I could give writers right from the jump. Just be more comfortable with it. But the stakes are so high because writing as an art is incredibly emotional. Because it feels personal, even if we're making the most made-up story in the history of made-up stories. It's a castle floating in the sky, powered by the dreams of house pets. And it's really the story of me when I was 4 and I encountered a butterfly on a spring day. Like, whatever the hell your story is. It's on some level deeply personal to you, and it was a risk, some kind of emotional risk you took in order to produce it on the page. And sometimes it's that fear, first and foremost, this idea that your emotional state can somehow be judged by another person, that will prevent you from putting it on the page. But as we talked about an hour and 23 minutes ago, you're thinking about step 20, and you're on step 2. I don't know if you know this, but on the internet, there's always somebody somewhere who's going to judge you. It might be great. It might be less than great. It might be worse than less than great. I bet right now, if you just randomly marketed something, it would take you maybe less than 10 minutes to find a Nazi. I'm thinking. So, yeah, there, loads of people out there will judge you and be critical and be just terrible, shitty people. Absolutely. No doubt. And that's part of what you sign up for. Not the Nazis. Nobody signs up for the Nazis. But the idea that other people are going to view your work. One of the most challenging things, one of the things that I couldn't easily categorize in this, is that on some level you have to encourage it. You love telling the story so much, not because you're thinking about how great it's going to be when Amazon sends you money, but because you have such a view on the story, not just the technical, like this is the kingdom and this is the castle and this is the dragon's name and this is the spell and this is what it looks like. Not just the mental movie, but the idea that you can tell this story in such a way that other people will enjoy it. That's driving you to share it. It doesn't matter what the idea is. It doesn't matter that, you're calling it blue and not cerulean. Like, that's not generally enough to distinguish and make a story desirable on a sales level. Like, it's nice that you're using cerulean and not blue, or it's nice that you're using blue and not cerulean. But at the end of the day, you have to want to put your story into the world because it matters to you that your art lives in the world. And if writing is the act of making decisions, that's got to be one of the first 5 decisions. And yes, as Troy says in chat, thick skin is so important for a writer, not just because of internet hate, but also constructive criticism from readers and editors. Yes, you're going to need some thick skin. And I am pretty willing to bet large sums of invisible internet money that no matter how thick your skin is right now, going through this creative process will thicken it further. Because it's hard. Even after 10 books. Even after, 2 decades of doing this, I still, need an hour of quiet time after I get some criticism from some people. It's 3 hours after a stream. It's 2 hours after, a simple recording. It's an hour after a Patreon thing. I just need to take a step back because I'm still the insecure 11-year-old. It's just the nature of existence. I thought I had thick skin until I got my first round of feedback from my first book. Yes. Everybody's got thick skin until the first comments come back. One of the things I will end with this story. I'm not sure I've told this story on stream before, but I know I've told it in writer chats. One of my first editing jobs was with a very successful, although he was not yet successful, but now he's a New York Times and world best-selling author. One of my first editing jobs was editing an early book of his. And I came from the school of thought where, as an editor, you had to assert dominance and make sure the writer more or less jumped through the hoops you wanted. And you had to be hard with writers because we were taught that writers are like golden retriever puppies. They're just kind of big and dumb and wander around, and you got to really wrangle them. And I went into my early editing experience thinking I gotta break this guy. I gotta take it apart. I gotta be a hard ass. I gotta really drill down and be mostly an asshole, trying to assert how correct everything was. And I gotta be bold because otherwise I'm gonna the writer will overtake me or something. And so I'm working on this guy's book, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. But I flag one thing, and I'm like, this is a real, what I would now, looking back at it now, I'd say something like, I think you could use a stronger descriptor here. But I didn't frame it like you could use a stronger descriptor. I straight up said, this is a really cowardly way of describing a thing. Don't chicken shit out on this. Which, by the way, is not really the thing you want to do in the first day of the first job you get. Don't do that. Do better than me. Don't call somebody who will years later be a world famous New York Times bestselling author a chicken shit. It doesn't. It's not good. So it of course naturally blows up in my face, as it should. I get called on the carpet. They threaten to fire me. The author threatens to pull the project. I apologize. I'm on thin ice with the entire publishing company for like 2 years as a result. I get assigned lots of crappy projects so that in case I do melt down and piss people off, it won't really matter or upset the schedule. But, and I learned pretty quick that getting feedback on my ability to give feedback really changed the way I give feedback. Because I just thought, I'm going to swagger in here and I'm going to tell people how it is. And they're going to listen to me because I'm the editor. I was young. I was dumb. I was so stupid. If younger me came in the room right now after I was done beating him about the head and neck, I think I would just sit down and tell him, like, okay, you need to get over yourself, and it's going to be real hard to do what you do, but you're going to get really good at it. You just need to not do it the way you were taught, and you got to figure it out on your own. And I think that's the best ending advice I have for you right now. There are loads of different people giving loads of different qualities of advice. I hope you come back here because you enjoy me and enjoy mine. And I'm always going to try and make it the most practical possible because I think it should be. And some advice is going to be applicable to you. Some advice is just going to be not for you. And that's fine. That's the nature of giving advice. But by and large, so much of the writing process is going to come down to, okay, I heard the advice. Cool. I got you. I'm going to put it on the page. And then somewhere along the way, I'm going to tailor it to my own ends. Because ultimately, that's how an author authors. That's how you do this job. You hear the advice. You tailor it to what you need. You produce better work. Even edits or suggestions. Because you don't have to accept them. You can go on about your day. It's not going to wreck my day if you decide to leave a comma in. It's fine. But first and foremost, you got to get your idea on the page, which means you got to believe in your ability to do it. You got to believe in the ability to give yourself permission to do it. And if you need externalized permission, because, I don't know, you grew up like me, you have my professional. Here, I will even use here. Wait. Look. Let's set this up. I'll kill the music. Here. Try this. You have my official professional permission to put your idea on the page. All right, does that work? There's your permission slip. And the next time you talk to somebody who's like, hey, they're just kind of spinning in a little circle. I want you to tell them, hey, I talked to this guy on the internet. He gave me permission. Did the writer end up making the changes I recommended anyway? He made some. He made some. I know the publisher made some. In the end, I think the majority were made. But yeah, it was more important that I learned not to call, a very famous human, don't call them a coward. I should point out, we can laugh about it now. It's been 2 decades. But, yeah, at the time, oof, that's some deep water to get thrown in when you were not ready to be swimming. Yeah. So that wraps up my notes. That's an hour and a half. I don't have anything else. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to hang out and answer some questions. Call this, I will stop the recording and we'll call it a freebie Q&A. But by and large, I want you to believe in yourself and I want you to put your ideas on the page, and you now have my permission. So why don't we do this? Why don't I stop the recording so that I can post it on YouTube tomorrow, and I'll hang out for a bit and see if we have questions. So let me press this button and see if I break everything. Awesome. Any questions? about anything, because now we're no longer like critically recording. Else I will just plug the upcoming events and we will move on with our evenings. I gotta remember the delay. It's not instant. I gotta write myself a note and put it on the monitor. Will this go up on? Yes, it'll go up on YouTube. I will probably put it up tomorrow afternoon. Because I also have to put up the chat from last week. I tried doing it today, but it was taking like 2.5 hours, and I had shit to do, and it was killing my bandwidth. So yes, it will go up on YouTube tomorrow. Would I be willing to be an accountability partner? Yes. If you want to like casually engage it, come find me on the Discord, and we'll set it up. But by and large, if you want to like seriously do it, you hire me, because that's literally like a third of my job. And I have to tell you, the hiring part of it, I'm better at it when I'm paid for it, both because I'm a mercenary and because I have more tools that I don't give away for free. The delay is 20 seconds. Yeah, I think it's somewhere in like the that sounds about right. It is more delayed primarily because I've got some anti-hate bots going through here, and it's kind of scrubbing like everything and keeping the place running safer than before. And I'm pretty pleased with it. I'm not the most like technical, and some of these things remind me an awful lot of like old IRC days, but for the most part, it seems to be working. We didn't have any spam tonight, so that was good. And yes, it is in your interest to, one, hire me, and then two, get on the Discord, because accountability is all over that Discord. We have aggressive but not toxic positive. That's correct. We do have on the Discord, we have aggressive but not toxic, because I can't stand toxic positivity. 41 seconds. Shit. Okay. I'm going to write that down, because there's stuff I can't necessarily guarantee I'll speed it up, but wow, 41 seconds. I hope, of course I know you appreciate what I do. I just, all right, so I used to assume that everybody just appreciated what I do, and then I found there's a large number of people who can't stand me. One of the reasons why they can't stand me is because I believe in aggressive positivity, but not toxic positivity. If you don't know what toxic positivity is, it's the shit you get from tech bros. It's this idea of like, all you gotta do is just crush it, bro, and you just gotta, there are no negatives, there are no things to grapple with, there is no privilege, there is no difficulty. It's just, you just gotta hustle and believe more and fix your mindset. And yeah, no, that's not how the world works. Whereas aggressive positivity is like excited positivity. Like, oh, fuck yeah, you're kicking ass. Keep going. Fuck yeah. Because I think people respond better to it. And yes, +1 for anti-hate bots, which I would not have known were a thing without the Discord. So if you're not on the Discord and you want to be, the easiest 2 ways, I work with a toxically positive person. Yeah, you like them and you can't hang out with them. Yeah, I do. I so understand that, because I used to be one, both for work, and I became one because I thought that's what would encourage people to do more things. I was stupid, but it's very uncomfortable, and it's so frustrating. So yes, I shifted from toxic positivity to aggressive positivity. Also, it makes me laugh to watch people who are notoriously self-critical have to go through the effort of telling people to celebrate their successes. Somebody who's real quick to run themselves down has to kind of like physically exert effort and will into the universe to turn it around and go, I'm really proud of you for writing. Because after a while, when they start doing that, it sort of has this feedback effect where it helps them too. So that's why I like doing it. But like I said, if you'd like to be a part of it and you want some accountability, jump on the Discord. To get the Discord, the 2 things you can do. 1, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/JohnHelpsYouCreate, because that'll give you the access link. Or two, you can come have a conversation with me and hire me, and I will hand you the Discord link like 10 minutes into our conversation, because I want you to have, it help. I want you to get help and support and care. Yes, the Patreon link works now. I fixed it. It also gives you access, the Patreon and the Discord both give you access to Watch Movies Right Better, which is the weekly, I guess somebody called it a constructive podcast, and it's growing on me. But it's the weekly stream of a film and commentary thereof. Right now we're going through The Matrix. We're doing, this week is The Matrix Revolutions, the third movie in the first trilogy. We're wrapping up The Matrix. And yes, I will be doing the fourth one when the fourth one comes out. I don't know what I'm doing the week after The Matrix. The poll, I have to make the poll. It'll go up on Thursday. I know there's some other stuff to talk. Like I gotta do Fast 9. I want to do, there's some comic book stuff I want to do. Like I've got some ideas. We'll come up with them. Yes, and hiring me is totally worth it. You will not regret it. Thank you. That's really sweet. Yeah, we're going to do The Matrix. I've got to do Fast 9 because I love the Fast and Furious series. There's a show on Stars I probably want to talk about. I won't do an individual episode by episode thing, but I want to talk about a show on Stars just broad picture strokes. I might do some of the early superhero movies. I'll do a podcast on a narrative without a plot. Yes, because it's Fast 9, and I believe that in Fast 10, Vin Diesel will finally get his lifelong dream to transform into a car. Any chance for some anime? Well, I mean, I suppose I could. I think if I covered anime, it would be real broad, because anime tends to be like 8 million episodes. Like, I would not do a Cowboy Bebop individual breakdown unless you wanted each to be like 6 minutes long. But I might cover like the big picture stuff. Here's why Cowboy Bebop can teach you, this thing. Here's why Attack on Titan can teach you that thing. I might do that. It's not a bad idea. Pretty pleased with that. But yeah, I want to do Fast 9. Yes, anime is... See, Violet Evergarden? All right, hang on. I got to put that on the list. Anime is not my thing. When I was like way younger, I used to say anime wasn't my thing because I like boobs and butts more. And then I found out that some of the people who really were into anime had boobs and butts. So that kind of messed up my whole thing. Violet Evergarden. Put that on the list for Googling tomorrow. But it's not my thing. It's only because, honestly, it's not the storytelling. It's the fandom. It's one of the only times a fandom has ever warded me off something. Because I somehow seem to find people who were way into anime. Super into it. And I'm not going to be that into it. I'll be into it if it's good, if it's art, and I can find the story and see the structure and I can appreciate the style of it. Totally down for it. But there are some people who are like, "Oh my God, there's this anime," and they just come at me like flying squirrels leaping out of a tree. Yeah, you can't judge a thing based on fandom. Yeah, I know. And as a member of fandoms where a lot of fandoms are just monsters, I get it. But at the same time, they're my first touchstone for things, because the people who tend to introduce those ideas to me are they want me to say something specific about this one thing that is niche for me and common for them. And I'm just, yeah. I mean, if it makes you happy and it brings you joy in the world, by all means, get right into it. But by and large, for me, not my jam. I will listen to you talk about it. I will have a root beer while you talk about it. I will say, "Oh, that sounds really cool," but at the end of the day, nope. I'll try it. I've tried good and bad things that way in my life. but it was not. It was not like, oh my god, anime, holy shit. It was more just like, oh, a different mode of storytelling. Cool. All right. Other questions? Anything, etc., etc., etc.? Thank you for your sacrifice. All right, so for those who don't know, thank you for your sacrifice for the Hellraiser 2 audio over on Patreon. I watched Hellraiser 2, and I watched it 5 times because I didn't think it was a particularly good movie. It was a barely coherent movie. And in my head, the parts of it I remembered, of which there weren't many, I had a completely different movie in my head. Like, I built a better Hellraiser for me. And I thought, well, that's just what I remember. Liked is the wrong word, but it was very, very well done. Thank you. Yeah. I'll talk about The Matrix. Those intros are great. I love those. But Hellraiser 2 was bad. Hellraiser 2 was super bad, and I watched it. And then I watched it again with friends because I'm like, hey, watch this thing and see if you're getting the same thing I'm getting, because this doesn't make any sense to me. Am I missing something? And we're watching it, and, like, it was bad. And then we brought more friends in. Hey, watch this. This is terrible. And the next thing I know, I've got, like, filmmakers and film critics and cinematographers and comic book artists and me. Like, we are sitting in here and we're watching this bad movie going like, they gave money for this thing. Can we get some of it back? Like, this is terrible. Who wrote this? Are they alive? Can we say something to them? And why is this way? And so I recorded that audio completely out of absolute frustration. And just, Hellraiser 2, man. And what really bugged me the most about it was that so many people were like, oh, John, you got to do Hellraiser 2. You got to do Hellraiser 2. You're going to love it. And I don't think they were doing it like, hey, he's going to hate it, you guys, but we're going to tell him he likes it. I think for them, they genuinely enjoy it. Like, they bought into it. They knew what they were getting on the label. And I didn't. And so my initial response of like, okay, let's give this a shot was, no. Ew. And then I proceeded to just die for about an hour and a half. That is a completely different experience than the stuff I've been doing, especially lately for The Matrix and even Twilight before, the Twilight series before that. Because if you don't know what I'm talking about, when I produce a thing every week, there's 3 parts. There's an introduction where I lay out sort of the tools we're going to talk about, some overall story stuff, and an important lesson you need to as a writer. So, like, for The Matrix #1, we're going to talk about, like, identity and sorting your stuff out and putting together a thing. And then we talk about the movie. And then we go watch the movie. And the introduction file is anywhere between, like, 10, and some of them have been, like, 55 minutes. It's just me talking. It's just this. There's no music underneath, but it's me explaining like, okay, so this is the general thing we're going to talk about this week is identity, or how to deal with genre, or how to do dialogue or something, because it's the important lesson of the thing I want to teach. And then I record an audio track. So I put the movie on, I fire up this microphone, I watch the movie, I tell you to pause it periodically, and I talk about what's on the screen so that you can more or less have me in your ear relatively while you're watching a thing. And it's essentially however long the movie is as an individual coaching session. That's the design. That's the plan for it. We're going to sit here and we're going to be like, okay, so we're going to go through, like, I did all the Star Trek movies. So I did all the Twilight movies. That's got to be the most infamous case of pause it every couple seconds. Because sometimes I pause it and I explain a thing, and the explanation goes 45 minutes, and we're only like 5 minutes into the movie. But you will have, 45 minutes of, okay, here's why this doesn't work. And I walk you through, like, here's how you build a character, here's this, and it's really technical. And it can be all yours for $2 a month. 4 times a month. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But, I try and get one done every week. They're incredible, and I love doing them. I love watching movies, and I love watching movies with my friends, and I love talking about story, and I love... Did I break... Yes, I did break a record. Twilight 1 is the most number of pauses. So it's so long, I broke it into 2 parts. Because the first 17 minutes of film took me 3 hours to talk about. There's a lot. I did the second Anaconda movie, and it was bad. And I want to make it clear, I don't only do bad movies, because we've done some great ones. We've done the Fast and Furious series. We did the Star Trek ones. We did Star Wars. Twilight 1? Twilight 1 was bad. Twilight 2 was better. Some of the Star Trek ones, by and large, pretty good. Daring to be really, really good in spots. Star Wars is 1917. I'm pretty sure I did 1917. Didn't I? You're going to make me look, aren't you? All right, hang on. Let me... if I haven't done 1917, although I'm reasonably certain I did. I thought I did. If I haven't done 1917, I will, holy shit, do 1917 in a heartbeat. Yeah, 1917 is in there. I will paste the link to 1917 in the Discord. Anyway, done it. When did I do it? Wow, like a while ago, because it's just listed as... It's just the file. Okay. I will double check that before I drop that link, because who knows, it's been a while. If not, I will... My Star Trek Nemesis rewrite, where I proposed an alternate version of the crew. Yeah. So that's the third file. So our first file is an introduction, where we kind of lay out the tools we're talking about. The second one is the movie. And sometimes it's real long and I break it into pieces. Sometimes I do it, I do it over the course of several days. And it's like hanging out on the couch with me. Sometimes I admit on the real long movies, you can hear me eating in the background because we're just hanging out on my couch. But then the third recording, which doesn't really have a name, but it's a combination of what worked and what didn't in the story and a rewrite focusing on the tool we talked about back in the intro. So when we watch a movie that's not great, but could have been better, like Star Trek Nemesis, and we lay out, well, here's what worked, and here's what didn't, and here's why those things worked, and here's why those things didn't, all of a sudden, we go, okay, so we have this new toolkit. Let's rewrite the movie so that it uses these tools better. And then that's how we turn into, I'm proposing an alternate cloned version of the Star Trek Next Generation cast to go up against the original Next Generation cast so that they have to use their experience against their own individual personal failings, and that's how they save the day. Because what would be cooler than old Picard with his experience going up against young, brash Picard? Or, cavalier, beardless Riker going up against bearded... I can't sit in chairs, but I like pizza, Riker. Like, those are just interesting dynamics to me. That's why I loved that one. Yeah, 1917, I did it live. I did? I got to listen to it again. I love that movie. One of the things I've been asked to do, especially lately, since we've done over 100 of them on the Patreon, is would I go back and cover some of the other ones? Yes, I would. I'd be real selective. Like, I'm not going to do Confessions of a Marriage Counselor again. There's a rape scene 20 minutes into that movie, and I'm not dealing with that again. And I'm not doing The Mummy again. I already did The Mummy twice. But some of the other ones, like A Few Good Men, it was incredible. Yes, and I'm sorry that the bot got you for using all caps. But I would go back and do A Few Good Men again. I have more to say about that. There are some I will not do again, like the last Star Wars movie. That once was enough. The first Twilight movie. Once was enough. But yeah, I'll go back and revisit some of the early ones. I would even redo Cats. I think, not that Cats aged well, because it didn't, but I think I have even more to say. That's a really good thing. I might do that. I might do that, next week or so. I'll think about it. I'll put up a poll. All right. Anything else, you guys? Cool. No, I don't know what this music. Holy, what is this thing? It's like a weird. It's supposed to be lo-fi. Is this not lo-fi? Like I thought it was like hissy chill lo-fi. Good grief. No, it's still in the lo-fi playlist. It just sounds not lo-fi, but okay. Anybody? Anything? Else we will get out of here. Again, that link, if you want to check it out, patreon.com/John, John, helps, HELPS, YOU, create, CREATE. John helps you create. $2 a month gives you, I think we're up to 112 or 113 different movies to watch and different things to files to listen to and stories to break down and different tools for your writer toolbox. Some of them better than others. Some of them where I'm genuinely excited. Some of them where I'm like, oh, well, I don't know how we're going to get through this, but we're in it together, comrades. So yeah, go check that out. That would mean a lot. Yes, thank you so much. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed this stream. The next time I'm here, right here in this space for Twitch, will be Wednesday. That's Wednesday of this week. That is 2 days from now. That is September the 15th. I'll be here for the weekly writers chat. Some of the questions this week, they're pretty darn good. I'm quite pleased with how the questions this week are turning out. There's a couple really good ones, and I think the new format where it's 6 questions and then it's something mellow and then 6 more and then something mellow. I think that's a nice little way to package everything up. I'm pretty pleased about it. All right. So I will see you there for that. Until then, my friends, take care of yourselves. Love each other. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. I love you all. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for helping me get better at this, and thank you for helping this thing grow. I need you to do me one favor and say something nice about yourselves to yourself and to others. You don't have to do it in chat. Just go away and do that somewhere else. And I'll talk to you guys very, very soon. See ya!